Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's IAmRemarkable community event. We are celebrating Pride Month in conversation with NoahFINNCE. Noah, I'm very excited to be speaking with you today. What an honor. I will let Noah introduce himself shortly, and for those of you who are not familiar, IAmRemarkable is a global movement that empowers everyone, including underrepresented groups, to celebrate their achievements in the workplace and beyond, while challenging the social perception around self-promotion. I'm a big fan of the initiative, and to date, the program has reached over 500,000 participants across 180 countries. Incredible. And we all did this as the facilitators in the IAmRemarkable workshops. So the workshop is open and available to everyone. So if you haven't taken the workshop yet, check it out on IAmRemarkable on the website. Just Google it. My name is Jeanette Flores. I'll be your host today. I've been with Google for 11 years now. Pretty long time in Google years. I'm currently an industry manager in retail, but I do have some passion projects that I'm allowed to do next to my core job. I'm co-leading the Pride at Google DE community. I'm also the IAmRemarkable lead for Germany, and I currently live in Hamburg with my wife and my 2 kids. We are expecting a little baby in August, so it's pretty exciting times for us. But enough about me. Throughout this session, we are here to celebrate and bring together the IAmRemarkable and the LGBTQIA plus communities. And we want to educate ourselves on how to be a better community and how to be great members and allies to everyone, because allies are important. So Noah and I, we will chat for about 40 minutes, and then we will have the opportunity to ask him questions. So please don't be shy. Get those questions into the chat box on your screen. We will try to get as many of these questions answered before the time is up. Noah, first of all, happy Pride Month. We'd love to know if and how you are celebrating. And for people in the audience who don't already know you, can you tell us a bit more about yourself, about your story? Where are you today? Let me know.
So how do I usually celebrate Pride? I only usually go to like 2 Prides. And I've been more excited about going to like Trans Pride in Brighton than I have been about like the big like London Pride parades. In terms of my story, Jesus. So I'm trans, for those people that didn't know. And I came out when I was 17, but before I came out, there was quite a lot of stuff going on. So pretty much like I grew up as a girl, and I went to like a very conservative, very traditional boarding school. And at that time, of course, I was a girl at school. But I started posting online when I was maybe like 15, 16. I started posting as a My Chemical Romance fan account. And then I met a bunch of other queer people, because queer people love My Chemical Romance. And I built a little community for myself. I made friends, and I had a bit of a following. And I was a boy online for a little bit and a girl in school. So it was a bit of a Hannah Montana double life situation, because I knew that if I came out at school, they would not know how to deal with me, and I would just not be able to have an all right time there. And then I eventually ended up coming out like 4 days before my 18th birthday after I'd finished school. I came out to my parents when I was like 15 or 16, but I was like, don't do anything. Don't change how you refer to me, because nobody else knows, and that would just be really awkward. But yeah, I came out to everybody when I was 17. I started testosterone in 2018, got top surgery 2019. And I've been doing the online thing since I was maybe 15, 16. But it's been kind of like a full-time thing since I finished school. I got signed in summer 2020. And I've been doing music for a while as well. So there's a lot going on.
Wow, what a journey it must have been. I can just imagine how hard it was in your prime teen time, right? Because
Yeah.
this is actually the time where you enjoy life instead of worrying about how to come out to your parents, to your
Yeah.
school. I can totally relate to that. But
Yeah.
you just mentioned your passion, music. Tell us about your music. What inspires you, and what is the message that you are aiming to send to your community via your music?
So you can kind of see a lot of inspiration behind me. I grew up listening to like Nirvana, Foo Fighters, My Chemical Romance, The Prodigy, all that kind of stuff. Like my parents luckily had music taste that I love. In terms of writing now, the vast majority of my music is just about like my personal experience. So like the first song that I released was about me being trans and feeling like just entirely uncomfortable, feeling not able to really face the world. But since coming out, I've felt a lot more comfortable with myself. That's not really something that is on the back of my mind all the time. Majority of my songs are just about how I'm feeling, really. I'm writing for my first album right now, which is daunting and terrifying, but also fun. And a lot of the songs on there are kind of inspired by what's going on in the world right now in terms of like TERFs and transphobes and that kind of stuff, and the kind of hate that I've gotten online for a while because of my identity, but also just like a lot about mental health and how I'm feeling.
Wow, congrats on the progress on your first album, first of all. And I'm so glad that your parents had a good taste on music. I just
Yeah.
remember waking up Sunday mornings and my dad singing karaoke to Britney Spears. That was my childhood. So I think you got better luck on that one.
I love
Uh,
that.
can you tell us a bit more about what community means to you? I mean, you have created a huge community. I think it's more than 870,000 followers on YouTube. That's huge.
Yeah.
And I mean, there have been times, or have there been times where you have leaned on that community?
Oh God. I mean, like I genuinely, I would not be where I am in my life if I didn't have that community. And I don't think, I think it was that community that I first started growing online when I was like 15, 16 that allowed me to feel so comfortable with myself and allowed me to actually come out, because like, I know a lot of people start doing YouTube for different reasons. A lot of people want to do it because they're like, I want to get attention, and I love that. Good for you. But for me, it was mostly just like I needed a place where I could be myself, because I couldn't
Mhm.
do that at all. Couldn't do that in school, and because I lived in school, like I was there like 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week, and like sleeping there, and there was no escape. So like that community that I had was pretty much the most important thing in my entire life. Like, and I've always had really supportive parents. They've always been lovely, but like friends in person, lovely, but not people that knew anything about the LGBT community. There were kids in my school that like I would be FaceTiming my friend and someone would be like, "Oh my God, is that a gay person? I've never met a gay person." Like it
Yeah.
was like it was beyond them. But I really owe like genuinely everything in my life, everything that I've achieved to the community that I have, whether that's like just my friends or just like the online community. Because a lot of I mean, like everything I know about being trans is from the community.
Yeah.
Everything that I've used, like I've been part of like Facebook trans support groups, and only there did I figure out like, oh, like so what do I actually have to tell to my GP so that she doesn't not prescribe me testosterone? Like I I can't explain how much of my life is like determined by the community that I've like surrounded myself with. And all my best friends now I met on the internet when I was 15, 16, and we were all in the same position where that was the only place that we could feel comfortable. So it's really incredible just how much of an impact it actually has.
Crazy. Yeah. It's so good to hear the power of the online world, how it has helped you. But I'm very sure that you also help the community just by being a role model, and role models are so important. I have two kids, and I can just see how they are looking up uh, to to idols, to role models. So thank you for being a role model yourself. One question I'm interested in: you mentioned that at school you were not able to come out, or it was not your safe space. Would you say that it had an impact on on your school grades? Because at Google, we always preach that you have to bring your whole self to work also to be able to perform better. So do you think there was a correlation?
Oh, 100%. So I was a very happy child. I was like, and my parents never told me that I had to be anything or do anything. And I remember like one of my earliest memories is my mom being like, "Yeah, you are weird, but weird is good. Boring, normal's boring." So I was like, "Okay, cool." Yeah, I mean, Jesus, can you ask that again? I just completely blanked.
If the fact that you were not able to come out at school, if it had an effect on your performance at school.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah, as I said, I was like a very happy child. I did really well in school because I enjoyed school, because I could be myself at school. And I've looked like this my entire life. And luckily the people that I was friends with when I was younger, they were like, you just like that. And they just completely accepted me. But when it got to the senior school, obviously kids hit puberty, you turn into a teenager, a lot of conformity happens there. A lot of people are very insecure about their bodies, about their image, about how they come across. And that was when people really started questioning me, and kind of without saying it directly, they gave off the impression that like what you are is wrong. I remember like I had short hair when I started that school, and there were a few kids that were just like, "You need to sort your hair out. Like, why is your hair so short? You look like a boy." And that obviously impacted me, and I ended up growing my hair out, and people would be like, "Oh, you should wear this." Like, people would take me to the shops and be like, "Oh, here's girls' clothes. Here's a padded bra. You should wear that." So I remember a lot of that happening, and that over the years, slowly realizing that like, hey, this feeling that I've always had is getting much worse, because you start puberty as a trans person. There's a lot of dysphoria associated with that, and that in itself was very distracting. Like I would spend the majority of my time in bed if I wasn't at school doing work or playing Sims. I was in bed or just playing guitar because it was very depressing. And not being able to be myself at school because of that, it was just like, it was just not a nice thing to think about all the time. Like, it was just like, okay, well, so I've got 4 more years until I leave, 3 more years until I leave, until I leave. And then during the last year of my school, I just like, it was a lot. But I was always like a very high achieving child. Like, I did really well at my GCSEs. I got like academic awards. Like, I did really well. And then definitely by my last year, I had just kind of given up. I was like, I don't care. And like, I still did well in my A levels, but the potential that I had, the potential that I could have, had, and the things that I could have achieved in my last year of school, completely gone, just because I was so depressed about the fact that like there was this one aspect of my life that really determined who I was. I just had to hide it from everybody. And by that point, I had like 100,000 followers on Instagram, and my name wasn't Noah then, because I didn't want people at school to find the account and be like, "Why are you a boy name?" So it was like Newt, but I was like Newt online, and the anxiety of people finding my account and figuring it out and coming up to me and being like, "Hey, what's going on?" That stressed me out. And there were a few times where I was doxxed at school. Like, people would find that account and then make accounts and be like, "Oh, this is his real name. This is where he goes to school. This is his parents' names." Like, incredibly distracting, obviously. And just like all that combined with the feelings of discomfort, the feelings of thinking that I'll never find somewhere I belong. It absolutely impacted my school life and my social life. And not to be a downer, but I truly feel like those last few years of school were just like, I was just getting through them. And the only thing that I could look forward to was the fact that when I finished school, I wouldn't have to hide who I was. I could just come out. And by that point, I was like, I don't care. I don't care if people don't accept me, because I know that I need to do this in order to be okay.
Absolutely. No, it's obviously it's a story that might be a downer, but I think it's super important to hear those stories. And I feel so sorry that society made you feel that you are wrong, right? Like you're saying that you were born as a happy child, and then in those crucial years, this happened and it had an impact on your performance at school. So sorry to hear that, but I'm glad that you had a community you could lean on. So in the IAmRemarkable workshops, we talk a lot about the imposter syndrome. What does that mean to you, and how have you experienced in your life the imposter syndrome, or even in your career?
Jesus, I mean, I feel like the majority of my life, there's always a little bit of imposter syndrome, and like that could start with like identity, like being a trans person. I felt like an imposter when I was a girl and being around the girls, and I always felt out of place. And not that like gender roles are like biological truths, and because you're a man, you don't believe in this and you'll never get on with girls. But I just felt in the environment that I was in, which was a very heteronormative environment, very gender roles were very strong, I felt entirely out of place. And I felt like an imposter trying to even be considered one of the girls, because I knew that nothing I could do would make me feel like I was like them. And then after that, coming out, feeling like an imposter with the boys, because I'm like, oh, I know I'm a guy. I know in my head that is a truth that nobody can take away from me. But I'm also surrounded by guys who were born guys and have life experience as a guy. And that even like transitioning, like the difference in treatment that I got from men before and after I came out. Like if men don't know that I'm trans, they just treat me like one of the guys. And there were certain things that like when people did know I was trans, they kind of didn't treat me as a guy. They treated me as like a half guy. And there was that whole thing of people trying really hard to be nice, which only reinforced the fact that I was different from them anyway. So I felt like an imposter in that sense of the word. And then also in terms of like my career, I don't think I ever felt like an imposter from YouTube. Like with the community that I've had, I've never felt like that, because I know that the reason that people are drawn to me is because I'm just being as honest as I can and just being myself, and I'm speaking to an experience that they also relate to. So that aspect, I've always felt like I'm just one of the community. Like that was always good. But then when it came to music, that's a whole nother level of imposter syndrome. That is
really?
Yeah, because like I started my YouTube channel posting covers. Like my first YouTube video is a compilation of me doing My Chemical Romance guitar solos, and then I started posting singing covers, and they did well. But because it was YouTube and it was just myself sat in front of a camera and I uploaded it, I was like, okay, cool, like this is fine. When it came to like being signed and being part of now that community that I'd always looked up, like I've had this stuff on my wall since I was like 14. Like this has always been part of my life. But I didn't do music at school. I didn't have guitar lessons. I didn't have singing lessons. I didn't have songwriting lessons. I was kind of just writing how I felt. And I got very obsessive about learning the guitar when I was like a teenager, because it was like one of the only distractions that I had. So I knew that I could write songs, and I did drums as a kid, and I knew I could do that. But when it came to being signed, that put me on a step where I'm compared to people that I look up to. Like I'm in the same magazines as people that I look to, and I'm playing the same festivals as people that I look up to. And I don't know music theory. I don't know any of that. All I know is how to vibe and write about my feelings. So going to like award shows, or like just like being around other people that do the same thing as me, I'm constantly being like, oh God, you're way better than me. They're looking at you like you're a loser, like you shouldn't be here. And it's just like, even like going into studio sessions with producers, I'm like, hey, I disclaim myself a lot. So I used to go into studio sessions being like, hey, by the way, I don't know any music theory, but I can play guitar. Like I in every aspect of my life, I'm like, I just need to let you know my weaknesses in case you see them and and they're very obvious to you. So I would rather get that out of the way. So like, imposter syndrome has played a massive thing in my life. And even, I mean, like just not fitting in terms of being trans, but also in terms of being neurodivergent. Like I've never felt quite like I fit in with anybody apart from the weirdos. So there's no imposter syndrome with the community that I'm in. But every other aspect of my life, there's always something in the back of my head that's just like, you don't belong here. You're not as good as them. And even like listening to other people's music, there was like a year after I got signed where I couldn't listen to new music because I would listen to it and be like, I would never be able to write something like that I'm not good enough, I would just get sad listening to music that now makes me really happy. So it was like imposter syndrome is very much in there.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, I can only imagine how hard it is ever since you got signed, how big the pressure is. And I always try to tell my kids, never compare yourself with others, because if you compare yourself to others, you lose. You can
Yes.
only lose, right? So the only way that is good to compare yourself is to compare yourself with yourself like 10 years ago, or for my
Yes.
kids 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So see your progress. And I think it's incredible that you didn't have the theory, you never went to classes and went such a far way. So really great achievement. And regarding the imposter syndrome, what advice would you give to your audience today to help them overcome their own imposter syndromes, a part of attending an IAmRemarkable workshop, of course?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. So I mean, you've already said some of it. Like, the most important person to compare yourself to is yourself. Like, that's something that I constantly have to remind myself of, and when I forget it, my boyfriend has to like nail it into me. He's like, Noah, think about what you were doing 2 years ago. You would not be able to do this without crying. So that's definitely great advice from you. I would also say that something that was reassuring to hear for me was I've like met my people within the music industry. Like, I know producers I love that I get on with really well. I know writers that we have like very similar experiences and we can talk about it. I think something that was really useful for me to hear was the fact that like most people that are successful have a lot of imposter syndrome. Like,
Mm.
I remember I've done sessions with people that are like I've looked up to for years and years and years, and we get on the subject of it because it happens all the time. Because that's I feel like a lot of people that are in creative industries are deeply insecure, and I think a lot of that insecurity is their motivation to do things. At least it is for me, but I think it's reassuring to hear that like I feel like most people have imposter syndrome in one way or another. Um, and that made me feel a little bit less alone with it. Yeah, I would just say that was helpful for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think no matter what level you are or how famous you are, or where you are in your career, since you always compare yourself with someone who's higher or more successful, I would think that even everybody has imposter syndrome at some point.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So mentorship and allyship, this is something that we talk about in the IAmRemarkable workshops as well. Do you have someone who you look up to, any idols, or someone who has made a positive impact in your life so far and that you would like to acknowledge here?
Yes. Yes and no. I always have a funny thing with like representation, because I don't feel like I ever had representation for somebody who was like me. Like
Wow.
I looked up to like Peter Parker, like and Peter Pan, and like I would look up to characters because I didn't really have there were no like trans guys that play guitar that wanted to do what I want to do. So like I've always struggled really understanding that relationship. But like I mean I looked up to a bunch of musicians, and I guess like members of My Chemical Romance, they're all freaks. They're all weird as hell. They don't they're not like other people in the least edgy way possible. So I've always looked up to that. But in terms of like allyship, I I like my mother was the biggest ally my entire life. Like even starting from when I was a kid, she knew I was not like other kids. It was difficult not to see that. But like even from when I was a kid, being like, you're not normal, but normal's boring, and you're way more interesting. So don't feel bad about yourself. And like when I was about 5, and I was like, Mum, I want a boy haircut and I want to wear boy clothes. She was like, yeah, cool, go for it. And if anyone laughs at you, just tell them that this is just how you wear clothes. And like throughout my life, that's always been a thing. And when I came out, she was so accepting. I remember I sent her a link to the Wikipedia page of non-binary, because at that point in my life, I was kind of the leap from going to a girl to a man. That was very overwhelming. So for me, I was like, oh, well, if I say I'm non-binary, that means that people will stop calling me a girl, because that was the main thing at that point, where I was like, I don't want to be seen as a girl. But I sent her a link to the Wikipedia page of non-binary, and she was like, is this you? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. And then she was like, a week later, she was like, are you sure you're not just a guy? And I was like, yeah, I am, Mom, I'm sorry. But she fought every battle that I couldn't fight myself. Like when it came to like trying to get through the medical system, going to my GP and them telling us that there's actually nothing that they could do, and her having to shout at them, being like, legally, you have to do this. You have to send him to a gender clinic. When they wouldn't prescribe my testosterone, even though it was a legal requirement to follow the protocol of the gender clinic, they still tried to not do that. And my mum was there every single week being like, hey, so here are the guidelines. I printed this off. Here's what it says. If you don't feel like you're capable of knowing what you're doing, don't worry. We've gone to professionals. Like, she was fighting every corner. She was the most supportive person literally ever. And like, she would take phone calls for me because I was so insecure about my voice and how it came across and the anxiety that I had. Like, she was the biggest ally that I've had in my entire life. And she would, like, I made a lot of friends with like trans kids who didn't have supportive parents, and she was like, I will adopt them. If they need somewhere to stay, they are staying at my house, and I will not let anybody hurt them. And she's just like always been the most incredible ally, and love her for that. But then in terms of like role models, I guess there's this singer called Laura Jane Grace, and she's in this punk band Against Me. She came out maybe like 7 years ago or something as a trans woman. And she wrote a book about her experiences, and she released this album called Transgender Dysphoria Blues. And I had never seen anything like that. I'd never heard anything like that. So I guess she was a role model for me, where I was just like, oh, you can do this stuff and also be trans and also be honest about it. So I guess she was also really cool to look up to.
Wow. Yeah. I need to let this sink in, especially the story with your mom. I already love your mom. Like, say hi to her. And I hope to be as good as a mom as she has been to you. It's incredibly important to have the full support of the family. So I think that's helpful. And now I see where your positivity comes from. You appear to approach life with so much positive energy, fun, pride, and no matter what your situation is, it's been a tough time, especially in your important teen years. No matter what, it's for you, it seems possible to live life to its fullest and to live your life the way you deserve it, right? My question is, how do you stay so positive? Where do you get the energy from? And or maybe more importantly, how do you manage through tougher times?
Yeah, I still don't think I've quite figured that one out yet. Like, I think a lot of it comes from, again, like community, like having people around me that believe in me way more than I believe in myself. Like, that was always a thing. Like, I didn't come out until my friends were like, you'll be okay. It'll be good. And if it's not, we're here. Like, they were the reason that like I was like pushed into coming out when I felt like I could. And like even like my boyfriend was the reason that I was able to get management, because I didn't feel like I deserved it and I didn't feel like I was good enough for it. And even like putting out songs, like I would send them to my friends and they gave me the confidence to do that. So I think all of that, I mean, I guess some of it must come from me, because if bad stuff keeps happening and I still pick myself up, but I feel like a lot of that is reinforced by just like the people around me being so lovely. And I guess good on me for being able to find the right people. But I don't know. I feel like I went through a lot in my life, even before any of like the trans stuff that we talked about. Like, I went through a lot of my life, maybe being like 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old, where a lot of bad stuff happened. Just like there are a few years where things were just like, oh, here's a bad thing. And then also the next month, oh, and also this happened. And also the next month, oh God, and this happened. And I think going through that at such a young age showed me that like, no matter how hard stuff gets, give it time and eventually something good will come out of it, or eventually you'll find a way to cope with it that will help you later on in life. So I think I've learned a lot of a lot of hard lessons in early life that maybe a lot of people wouldn't have learned. So maybe I'm at a bit of an advantage there where, like, say something bad happened to me now, I already have the experience of it happening 10 years ago, and I've learned from what happened then. So I think it's just like a combination of people around me being really supportive and really nice and believing in me more than I believe in myself.
Absolutely. And in a very young age, you learned how to be resilient, how to stand up, how to face challenging and tough situations. And I'm glad to hear that you have a partner who's supportive and who believes in you. I think that's crucial, right?
Definitely.
And Noah, tell me what's next for you now. What do you want to achieve for yourself, but especially for your music, the trans community? Any plans, any goals?
So for myself, I've never been someone that like sets goals. I kind of just like, oh, I'll just try really hard, and if things go well, they go well, and that's got me in a position where like things just fall into place. In terms of my career, again, I'm not really one for goals. I want to write an album that I'm really proud of. I want to spend a lot of time on it, and I want to write as many songs as possible so that I can pick the best ones and then work on them for as long as possible, like really dig into like what I want to say. So I guess that's a goal. I want to write a really good album and one that I'm really proud of. In terms of the trans community, recently, the past few years have been very difficult for the trans community in general, and I think for me as well, because when I came out, I assumed that things would only get easier and that I would go through some hard stuff. I'd have to come out to people. I'd maybe have some difficulties with the medical system because they don't seem to have our best interests at heart. But I thought eventually things would be moving more progressively as they maybe had been in the past. Whereas the past few years, I feel like things have very quickly devolved into like pure hate, and people are rehashing the arguments that they had against gay people in the 80s. Like they use the exact same arguments that people used back then, and it's disappointing that we haven't really learned from that. So I feel like my hope for the trans community is that we get through this really tough period, because I know that like the trans suicide rate, like the trans murder rate, like there's a lot of bad stuff going on within the trans community, and my hope is just that we get through this tough time and we see that, you know, in the next few years it may be difficult, but that we will get through it and we'll get past it. And I really hope for the trans community that people listen. And I don't know, I think misinformation is the biggest culprit for any of this kind of thing happening. And I hope that there are a few trans voices that are able to reach through to maybe people that are like put maybe to people who are indoctrinated into being homophobic or transphobic or anything like that. But I hope that we become stronger as a community and focus more on strength within ourselves than like infighting, because there's a lot of that. But yeah, I think a lot of it is just, I hope we get through the tough times.
Yeah, absolutely. I love becoming stronger as a community. And I think we do see a lot of progress. We have seen progress in the past few years, but I unfortunately also see that we are going a few steps back in some areas, if you read the news. So there is still a lot of room and a lot of work ahead. So thanks for all your work in this, for the trans community. So coming to our community questions, we got a question from Daniel. Daniel says, "Hey Noah, I hope you're doing well and happy Pride Month. My question is, how do you strike the balance between creating queer-centric content that can resonate and educate your fans and the community, and creating content that doesn't revolve around LGBTQ plus topics that you enjoy and that you want to create?"
This is a difficult one, and it's something that I like, because I've been doing videos since I was in school, and I'm 23 now, which I know I'm still a baby, but like it's a long time to be doing one thing on the same platform. This is definitely something that I've struggled with, and I think maybe a few years ago I felt like I needed to make trans content, and I was very reluctant about it because I I still had like a lot of internalized transphobia going on where like I still struggle with that a bit now, where I'm just like, I don't just want to be seen as this trans guy. I don't want to be valued purely because of my identity. And I think being on the internet and being openly queer, that is inevitably going to be happening. So there's no point getting too hung up about it. And a lot of the time back then, I didn't necessarily enjoy making queer content. That was in the pile of, oh, I guess I'll make this, and then I can make other stuff that I actually enjoy doing. Whereas nowadays, I think it's way more that like I enjoy talking about this. Like a video, like my favorite video that I've released in the past year is one about just like I just sat down for 4 hours and wrote every feeling that I had to do with transphobia, to do with J.K. Rowling, to do with the government, to do with the medical system. Like I just wrote down every feeling that I had, and that was really therapeutic for me. So I'd say that like nowadays it's less about making content that I like and making queer content. It's more just about striking up the balance of putting away time so that I can focus on what I really like. And I think that's difficult now that I'm doing a lot of music stuff. But yeah, I think a lot of the thing about being a content creator is trying to balance what it's like, because it's trying to figure out what will do well and make it clickbaity and make it really clickable and like what you're passionate about. So I think I don't know if I can answer the question because I still think I'm trying to figure it out. I think something that's helped me is kind of sitting down and writing down my feelings and like writing down topics that I want to talk about and writing about how I do it. And I think just like really putting down time to think about that rather than just like being on the grind. And I'm like, okay, let's film some videos. Let's get the next video on. I think a lot of it is just like having some time to sit and think about what I actually want to do. But as I say, I'm still struggling with that. So that's as helpful as I can be.
Absolutely. No, that's super helpful. I don't think that there is a magic formula. And I hear from a lot of creators that the pressure is high. You know, you have to release a video clip. And on the other hand, you need to be authentic and do what you love. So I think you are doing it the right way by being authentic and by enjoying what you do, right? And obviously, it proves to be successful. So thank you, Daniel, for posing that question. And to everyone, please feel free to ask your questions into the chat box. We have another question from Peppa. Peppa is asking, how old were you, Noah, when you realized that you were trans? And do you have any tips for coming out to people you know are supportive, yet it still feels difficult and scary, if that makes sense?
Yes, that does make sense, Pepper. Don't worry about that. Yes. So this is always a hard question to answer. And I feel like it maybe is for a lot of trans people where like I didn't have a light bulb moment where I was like, oh, I'm a transsexual, obviously. Like that's not usually how it works. I think I could like go through my life and tell you little realizations that I had at whichever ages. So like when I was 5, I knew that I wanted a boy haircut and I wanted to be called Alex. And I would tell kids on the playground that I was a little boy just because that's how I felt. And obviously when you're 5, you don't think, oh, I have gender dysphoria and I'm going to go on HRT because like you don't know that. But like I would do that and I would like pack using Play-Doh. Like I would make packers out of Play-Doh and I'd feel good about that. And I think that was obviously a very early sign. But then again, more when it came towards like getting older and making friends and the way that you interact with your friends, like we would do like role play games. Like we would just pretend to be characters. I don't know how normal that is, but that was the only way that I played as a kid. But like I would always be the boy character. And because I thought that boys had to have girlfriends, I was like, I'm the boy character. I'm the head of the basketball team and I have a girlfriend who I love. And that was just like, that was the role that I saw myself in at that point. And then when I got a bit older, I was like 10, 11, 12, puberty hit. And I had that talk with my mum where she was like, oh, you're gonna start growing boobs and you're gonna get a period and you know you're gonna have to start wearing bras. And I remember sitting down having that conversation, and it's just something that's always been part of my brain. And as a kid, I just assumed that when I would get older my voice would get lower and I would look more like a guy, because I don't know how common that is, but that's just how my brain was wired, because that's how I saw myself. So I remember sitting down for that first chat. I was like, I don't know if that will happen. Like, I don't see that. And then when puberty did eventually hit, that was the point where I was like, okay, I know I've always felt a little bit different as a kid, but I could deal with that. But when puberty started happening, started growing boobs, that was that I guess I didn't know what being trans was then, but that was when I knew that there was something wrong. Like, that I can't explain how difficult and uncomfortable and how wrong it feels for your body to just be growing in a way that you deeply know that it shouldn't be. Like, and like growing boobs and like trying to hide them and not understanding why I felt different and why other people could walk around in tight t-shirts showing off their boobs because they actually wanted boobs. So I feel like that was the most pivotal moment when I started puberty. And then I didn't really realize what being trans was until I was like 14 or 15. And I read about it more on the internet. And my first reaction to it was, oh yeah, but I'm more trans than them. Like, I would literally, I'd see like trans guys talk about it on YouTube, and I was like, oh yeah, but like I feel like that. I'm like, I'm not trans. So like, what do you mean? And then I feel like after watching people talk about their experiences, it took a while for me to be like, to resist, to stop resisting the idea that like I was trans, because I knew I was. And I'd say it was when I was 14 or 15 where I could fully understand what it was, and I had the language for what it was because I could research a lot, and I got very obsessive about that. But that was kind of how I realized I was trans. It wasn't just like one thing. It was a lifetime of experiences that when I eventually read up about it, it all kind of was just like, oh, okay, obviously, how did you not realize this earlier? And then in terms of coming out to people who you know are supportive, yet it still feels difficult and scary. I mean, that's the exact position that I was in with my mum. And like, I never know how to tell people to come out, because everybody has completely different experiences, and you know, everybody has very different family. But for me, I think something that was useful was to maybe bring up time and time again, like little things that like you've heard about, like, oh, I was like, did you hear this person came out as gay? That's mad. I would never have expected that. And starting up that conversation, even if you know that your parents are supportive, I think even having little conversations like that where they can reassure their point that like, yeah, they don't actually hate gay people, they don't hate trans people, that was very useful. And I think for me, like, I have always found it difficult talking to people in person about things. So I came out to everybody important in my life via messaging. And I'm not saying I would recommend that, because I know a lot of people would feel maybe not, maybe they wouldn't feel as respected, I guess, if people aren't like taking the time to like sit them down and talk about it. But like, I don't know. I think if it's something that needs to come out, desperately needs to come out, and you feel like you physically can't, writing a letter works. Like I wrote the equivalent of a letter on the internet. I think, and I also think it's important to surround yourself with friends that you can come out to. Like, if the difficulty is like coming out to your parents, having a very supportive group around you that are going through the same things as you, and talking to other people that have been through the same experiences as you is incredibly important. Because I think something that me and my boyfriend have been talking about a lot is that like, we, in the position that we are with the identities that we have, we don't really have a set role in life. Like, we don't have all these people to look up to. Like I know a lot of straight kids will be like, oh, I'm going to grow up and I'll have this fairy tale wedding and I'll have a husband and beautiful kids and I'll grow up in this house. And like, I feel like as queer people, we don't really have that a lot. And the only people that we do have is the people around us to talk to. So I think really opening up to people that maybe you do feel safe around, and people that have had the same experiences as you, is the most important thing. Because like that was what really helped me. It was finding people that were like me. And the internet is great for that, as long as you're very safe.
Yeah, absolutely. I can relate to that. I always thought, okay, I'm going to have a husband and a couple of kids because I didn't know better, you know?
Yeah, you feel like that is the life that you will have because that's all you've seen.
Yeah. But it's interesting that you mentioned that you felt more comfortable coming out in messages. We had a panel with some trans board members of big German companies, and one of them said, I came out in a video message to my company, to everybody, because otherwise they would have thought, how is her voice now? How does she look now? So she could answer all those questions in the video message, but it just shows me that everyone has their own way how they feel comfortable to come out to people.
Yeah. No, definitely.
So we have tons of messages. That's why I want to quickly move on. We have one from Scarlet. Hey, Noah, I love your music so much. What's your favorite song that you have written?
So, okay, well, I haven't said this anywhere else. I was in the session in the studio for the past 2 days recording my new song. It's called Growing Up on the Internet. It is, I love it. Like, and I have the imposter syndrome. I'm like, oh, what if it's not good? What if it's not good? This song, I'm like, okay, no, I did a good job with this. So I think the next song that's not about to come out, the next song that will come out, Growing Up on the Internet, I'm so proud of it. So that one.
Okay, perfect. Avery has a question. First of all, hello, Noah. I love your music. It has helped me so much. Do you have any advice on opening yourself up to meeting like-minded people, in particular as a neurodivergent queer trans person? I really appreciate everything you bring to the internet.
So yes, up until a few years ago, I would refuse to go to parties because I was terrified of meeting new people. And what really helped is kind of just the thing is doing things that you're scared to do and finding people that will push you to do that. So my advice would be if you have a best friend that can go somewhere with you, if you can look up even down the road from me, they had a queer climbing night. So look for events like that are, where you find queer people, you will find neurodivergent queer people. So there's no worry about finding that specific subsect of people, but I'd say looking in your local area, what's going on with that kind of stuff, and bringing along a supportive friend. They don't have to be queer either. They could just be a friend that's an ally. I think, again, my answers to probably a lot of these questions are going to be find your person, find your friend, find people you're safe with, and allow them to help you with the things that you need to do.
Absolutely, makes sense. We have another question from Vija. Hi, Noah. Happy Pride Month. I love your music so much. It brings me so much joy. You have a lot of fans here, Noah. And the question is, I want to ask how to deal with transphobic, homophobic family when you are feeling dysphoric, if that makes sense.
Yes, that is. Yeah, that's a difficult thing. I mostly have a supportive family, but there are a few members that maybe they're not transphobic or homophobic, but they always manage to say the wrong thing, and they always manage to peddle transphobic, homophobic ideas. Again, I don't want to answer these all the same, but if there are certain members of your family that are transphobic, homophobic, and there are certain members that aren't, I know a lot of people have very supportive uncles that love the supportive gay uncle, supportive gay aunt. I think, who's going to know your family better than the rest of your family? And if there's people in your family that maybe you can open up to, I would suggest talking to them too. And again, just talking to other people that have the same experience. There are tons of people that are going through the same thing that you're going through. And I think community is the most important thing for people like us, because if we can't find community within our environment physically, we can find them online, and we can, I don't know, I would love to be able to fix everybody's problems and have all the answers. But I think the most important thing is speaking about your feelings, because it's very easy for you to go through these experiences and just let them bottle up, and then you just end up fizzing over, and it doesn't work out well. So I think speaking about it, pinpointing exactly how you feel about it, whether that's writing it down, that really helps me if I don't understand how I'm feeling, or I do understand how I'm feeling, but I don't know how to not feel that way. I think writing it down, really thinking about it, and not just avoiding it.
Yeah. And every struggle or pain that you have gets smaller if you can share it with like-minded people, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely agree. So, Isa, it's a question about your music. I really like your music, so I would like to know if you think your album will come out this year, and because you've said the new stuff you're doing is different, in which way would you say it is changing?
Yes. So the album will not be coming out this year. As I said, I want to spend a lot of time on it. And feel like in the past, a lot of that kind of stuff has been rushed. And an album is like your first album is like a very big thing. So I want to make sure I'm working on that properly. At the point I'm at now, I have a load of songs and there's a bunch that I know will go on the album, but I want to keep writing to see if I can write stuff better. And in which way would I say it's changing? It is ADHD in the form of music. Like, I think my thing has always been like, I have a short attention span, so every verse has to be different. The stuff that we're doing now is kind of insane. It's a real mix of a lot of genres. It's both poppier and heavier than other stuff that I've been doing, and it's less just like formulaic pop punk. And not to say that like every song that I've written is just like formulaic pop punk, but like I think I found the people that I really get on with writing wise, and it doesn't sound like other stuff that I've heard. So I would say that it's less just pop punk and more pop punk, metal influences, punk influences, pop influences. It's a lot going on.
Okay, so stay tuned. Sounds crazy to me. So Ethan is wondering, how has being diagnosed as neurodivergent improved your life? How has it improved your life?
In ways that I really didn't think would ever be possible. So I got diagnosed with ADHD maybe 2 years ago. And it was something that I knew about myself since I was a kid. It was like my psychology teacher would tell me it. And even if I wasn't diagnosed with it, my teachers were they found it very obvious that there was something going on, because they would let me just stand up and walk around class, because they're like, you're good, just allow it. But getting that diagnosis was really validating, because again, imposter syndrome, I thought that I was convincing myself that maybe I had these struggles that I didn't have because I got to the age of 20 without being diagnosed, so I can't be that bad. But it really just, being diagnosed with ADHD gave me the tools that I needed to deal with day-to-day life, and researching a lot about it, hearing how it affects people, and really getting deeply into how it works and understanding it was really helpful, because it helped me implement things in my life that would make day-to-day life easier. Like for example, something called body doubling is something that ADHD people benefit from, where if you're struggling to do work, or if you're struggling to concentrate, having somebody in the room that is also working quietly next to you, or somebody that you can bounce off, is, for people with ADHD, is one of the most helpful things. And really, I guess just like with the imposter syndrome, I was like, well, I haven't been diagnosed, so therefore I don't have it, so therefore I don't need to implement these things in my life because I'm just lazy. That was a big thing with me, where I thought I was just lazy, and it wasn't an actual neurodevelopmental issue. So like it also allowed me to be forgiving of myself, and it came up with not to make excuses, but coming up with explanations for why I had been in bed for 3 days and wasn't able to do something because I couldn't concentrate on doing it. It really helped physically with things that I could do in the real world that would help, but it also helped ease that burden mentally, where I thought that I was just useless and lazy. I'm looking into getting an autism diagnosis, so stay tuned for that. I'm sure that will be beneficial as well.
I will definitely have a look at that one. We are currently testing our older daughter, and this is a topic that's very close to my heart. So last question from Max. How did you deal with gender dysphoria while you were in school?
I didn't really. Like, I don't. The main thing for me was like, I was a girl at school, and I couldn't get past that. I couldn't get past the fact that people saw me as a girl. That was something that would always be like, I wore the girls' uniform. I grew up in a girls' boarding house. I was constantly surrounded by girls who thought I was a girl. So for me personally, like, having that place, that community on the internet, or it doesn't have to be the internet for everybody, but just like having those people that you can be yourself to, really helped the dysphoria that I had, because like people would treat me as a boy. They would call me he. They would call me Noah, and that was something that was really helpful. But stuff that I did do was like, by the end of my school time, I would just end up wearing a binder, like to like flatten my chest. And that was something that I was really scared to do at school, because I thought people would comment on it. No. They didn't, and I'm not saying that won't happen for everybody, but that was really helpful. And it really is just community wise, like having people that I could speak to about it. And I guess like I joined the girls rugby team, and that made me feel good, because even though I was up against girls, I was still like, I was the captain, like I was the fast one, I was the strong one, and that really like validated me. I think it's just important. I hate to answer these all the same, but to just find your people that you can speak to about it, because before I could speak to anybody about it, it ate me alive. Like, it was something that was always on my mind, and I would just tell people like, "Oh no, I'm fine. I'm just tired. I'm just tired, and I'm not depressed or anything. I'm just tired." It was just exhausting. So I think taking every little win as a big win is all you can really do. Like, I don't know. I think getting my hair cut was great. Like, being able to like look at myself in the mirror and be like, this is not ideal, but like this hair is a lot better than it was. I think just taking every little win as a win really helped, because if you're in school and you're not able to come out, there's not much you can do apart from really try and see the positives for what they are.
Thanks for the advice. I hope this helps a lot in the a lot of people in the community. So Noah, we'd like to end this part of the session by asking you a question that we ask all of our speakers. What makes you remarkable?
Oh God. So I am remarkable because I do things that I am scared of. And I think that is something that has changed my life entirely. I definitely would just live in my room 24/7. I wouldn't leave the house. I wouldn't talk to anyone. I wouldn't meet friends. I wouldn't do new experiences. I just wouldn't do anything because I was terrified of it. And I think I'm remarkable because of my friends that are able to push me into doing those things that I'm scared of. But every cool opportunity that I've had, I've just started saying yes to. And any person, like you just have to do things you're scared of, because otherwise you're not going to make any progress. So I think that was the one realization that I had, was that I was saying no to things that I knew would benefit me because I was scared. And I just really needed to have somebody tell me that, hey, Noah, I know you're scared, but you should do this thing that you're scared of. I'm remarkable because I do things that I'm scared of.
So be bold. I can totally relate to that. I mean, I always say I am remarkable because I was bold enough to come out to my very Catholic Filipino family, and against all odds, I did it my way, and I am trying to prove them that you can still have a family even if you are married to a woman, right?
Oh yeah, I love that.
What an inspiring session, Noah. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining today's talk. And this session will be available on demand. So please spread the word. Yeah, thank you and goodbye. Have a good day.
See ya.